I became the wife of the monstrous crown prince. Chapter 86. Chapter 86 starts with Blake and Rose. Blake was getting ready and going towards Rose's room, while Rose was worried due to blood on his arm. Joanna thinks the prince will fall in love at first sight the moment he discovers her. Although she is far more attractive than Ansha, they have comparable hair and eyes. No, he won't remember Ansha once he meets her. She will become the crown princess when he asks her to marry him and let me enter the imperial palace. In any case, it was improbable that he would convey the suffering of the populace in his capacity as the landowner. Glancing at the food arranged on the large table, Blake spoke. It was a fantastic dinner, enough for 10 people. Rob, a different character, is concerned about Rose's romantic partner, Blake, in the meantime. Given that the crown prince abandoned Rose and Blake, he thinks they will suffer terrible outcomes. Rob has no choice but to find out who Sarah and Richard really are in order to protect Blake. Recap: Ansha's guard told everyone that Ansha had lost her memory and that it would gradually return. The maid promised Ansha that she would give her a tour of the palace. Ansha, however, turned down her offer and stated that she preferred the white-haired girl to be her mentor. Ansha said to the maid that Rose, for once, didn't even bow just because she saw her. The maid said she was sorry and that Lady Rose wasn't a maid so that she couldn't give Ansha advice. Ansha wasn't ready to accept a word of what the maid was trying to explain to her. Clench explains that Richard turns out to be Philip's reincarnation, having long ago imprisoned Rose behind that same mysterious door. The discovery casts doubt on Rose's current relationship with Richard, her childhood friend. Rob, a different character, is concerned about Rose's romantic partner, Blake, in the meantime. Given that the crown prince abandoned Rose and Blake, he thinks they will suffer terrible outcomes. Rob has no choice but to find out who Sarah and Richard really are in order to protect Blake. Rose is determined to become Anthea and find out the truth about Sarah and Richard. As she opens her mouth to speak, nothing comes out. Rose can't seem to put her feelings into words, but she's determined to prove Anthea is a fake. This suggests that Sarah intervened to prevent Rose from revealing her identity. Spoilers: Blake changed into new clothing and took a quick bath. Rose was just worried by the blood on his arm, that's why. He was going to button up his shirt and head to Rose's room since he didn't want her to worry about him when he heard Eden's voice. Every time the Viscount passed through the Valley of Turmoil, Blake had been invited to stay at his mansion, but he had never accepted. Your Highness, terrible creatures prowled the Chaos Valley when the Gateway of Darkness vanished. This time, the land destruction is really severe. Blake was met with broad smiles by Viscount Dix and Joanna as he walked into the dining room. When he had something essential to say, why did he bring his daughter? On the other hand, they cooked these dishes in a remote area every day. Their flattery annoyed him, but he said nothing. He believed that all people were repulsive. Blake remembered Ansha's words every time he met someone new. But he never felt content. Everyone he came across wanted to take advantage of him. Now that his curse was lifted, he heard many such confessions. But during his early years, Ansha was the only person who stuck by his side. Viscount Dix's countenance grew serious upon hearing Blake's biting remarks. Blake was referring to a previous appeal he had submitted. In the appeal, he had insisted on keeping the heir to the curse on the southern island. Because of her beauty, the elite of the capital city wanted to marry her, but she turned them all down. She had attended several parties in the capital city, but she had not been invited to the imperial ball, which prevented her from seeing the stunning Ansha. But at her age, Ansha rarely interacted with the nobility. Release date: I Became the Wife of the Monstrous Crown Prince. Chapter 86 will be released on November 19th.